Hello there, ladies and gents. Great to see you again. Welcome back to Advance Your Wealth with Homer Smith. I'm Ryan Ruff, your moderator, but as always, I've got Homer standing by, private wealth advisor, of course, and we're going to be jumping into another wealth management discussion as we typically tackle on the show today. Sometimes we bring you guests and we, dive into their expertise, their unique corners of the world and how it intersects with wealth management. But today, Homer and I thought we'd zoom in on a particular component of wealth management as a whole, specifically a component that's really applicable to a lot of wealthy families out there. So to kind of frame up today's conversation, when you look at a lot of the wealthiest families in the world, they've been establishing structures around them to help their families and of course themselves optimize their wealth overall. And you may have heard us utilize the term single family office in the past. And this is a structure where they're not only just managing and optimizing their wealth, but they're also addressing key issues that may be facing the family as a whole. And in recent years, these super rich families, and let's say it's a net worth of maybe $500 million or more in assets, well, they've also started looking towards what's called a multi-family office, an option where basically this family office is serving multiple families, all of which kind of having that similar goal of optimizing wealth overall. So Homer and I thought it'd be an interesting conversation today to dive into the single family office and the multi-family office, look at some of the differences between those two, the advantages and also the disadvantages of each of them to see, hey, maybe one is better off for you and your family given your needs. So before we get into all the details of that, let's go ahead and say hey to Homer. Homer, it's good to see you today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Good to see you as well. And as always, looking forward to the discussion today.
Yeah, so let's start high level. I just mentioned this idea of the single family office. Why don't we start there? Why do families typically set these up and look to leverage the benefits from this particular structure?
Yeah, so the single family office, as obviously the name implies, is set up for a single family. So it's designed to really work as kind of a supercharged concierge entity for the family. So it spends, it in-houses a lot of resources from accountants to attorneys to wealth management. And their whole goal is to, again, optimize for that specific family. And it covers a wider range of needs, very individualized to each of those families. So it could be focused specifically on wealth management or their real estate portfolio. But oftentimes it'll then branch out into all sorts of other services like sourcing private jets, buying an island, or doing a lot of family dynasty planning around the longevity of the wealth for the family overall. So again, because of the needs of each of those families can be so dynamically different, they're able to set up this entity specifically to focus on their particular needs.
All right, I love it. So now, even though families may have the sufficient needs or the ability to go after the single family office model, you're seeing a handful of families out there considering leveraging the multifamily office model. Why don't you just set the scene on what that model looks like, and then, of course, why it might be more appealing to some than the single family?
Yeah, so the multifamily office differs in that you mentioned earlier is that it's serving multiple families and it's designed a set of resources and services to help, again, still focusing on optimizing for those families, but the multifamily office is bringing in specific resources they've in-house. So they've in-house certain tax professionals, legal professionals, insurance professionals, investment professionals to, again, work on behalf of multiple families. But the advantage is from a cost structure, the family isn't having to in-house and have payroll for so many different people. And these multifamily offices, because of the level of wealth that they're managing, they often have access to professionals and structures, ideas that maybe a single family office, because of their narrow focus, isn't uncovering. Right. So having a second pair of eyes take a look at the overall family office structure for that individual family can often uncover values that a multifamily office can come in and serve. It doesn't mean that the single family office disbands. It just might mean that they outsource some of what they were doing in-house to this multifamily office structure.
Okay, good to know. I want to double click a little deeper and get a little more granular for the audience out there specifically so that they can understand kind of the key differences in what it looks like from their unique perspective of working with these offices. So talk me through some of those key differences and how it ultimately does impact the families themselves.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of similarities. And so, the goals are the same, whether it's a multifamily office or a single family office in it, which is to, optimize the wealth of that family and get to know them extremely well. I think, obviously from a single family office perspective, their only focus is on the goals of that one family. So maybe a little bit more narrow of a focus, but overall, that's still the ultimate outcome that they're trying to achieve. Obviously, from a business model standpoint, the very key differences in that in a single family office, they're generally in-housing more of the resources. It doesn't mean they don't outsource various components, but they're going to in-house a lot more of the ultimate resources, where a multifamily office, when you're employing them or engaging with them, you're effectively outsourcing a much larger chunk of the investment management, tax planning, estate planning to that multifamily office. I think another very large difference is around control. So obviously, in a single family office, they're working for you, your family, and so you have ultimate control over the direction that single family office goes. But when you're employing and engaging with a multifamily office, they're going to have a philosophy, a way that they are serving their families, that you're going to have just less control overall with. And then finally, cost structure is I think a major difference from an overall structural standpoint. So with a single family office, much more of the cost is going to be fixed because you are directly employing maybe a CEO, COO, CFO. So you're hiring executive level roles directly for the family. And so there's a significant amount of fixed costs. And then you have additional variable costs depending on other services and concierge services you need to bring in. Or with a multifamily office, the entire structure is variable. So you're able to adjust and move around pricing based on the needs of the family from a multifamily office standpoint. So from a structural standpoint, those are some of the key differences between the two.
Okay, got it. Good to know. Always from a nuts and bolts perspective, if you will. But let's talk about maybe some of the differences outside of the structural components, those kind of intangibles, if you will. We've talked about confidentiality in the past. Obviously the communication styles and preferences are always big. So walk me through some of those key differences on maybe those intangible, not structural differences, but differences that anybody that would be involved with a single family office or a multifamily office would notice, and it would be important to them.
Yeah, I mean, confidentiality, you mentioned that one, so we can start with that one. So, obviously with a single family office, they just work for that family. And so, all of the people are typically directly employed by the family. They've got non-disclosures, confidentiality agreements. And so it's easier at least to control the level of confidentiality. In a multifamily office, there might be significantly more employees overall that might be touching, servicing that family. And so there's just maybe more opportunities for leaks, right? Again, it's not, that's multifamily offices do a really good job focusing on confidentiality, but you just have a little bit less control over it. I think another one that you want to keep in mind is responsiveness. So obviously, if you employ everybody and they work only for you, any request, any question is going to be immediately responded to. Or with a multifamily office, again, you're one of multiple families that group is working with. And so while you're going to have people, maybe not obviously, but you will have people more dedicated to you and your family, there's still going to be a small difference in the responsiveness between the two. I think another one is a conflicts of interest. And so when everybody's just employed directly for you, it pretty much eliminates the risk of a conflict of interest in terms of how services are brought in and decisions are made. And with a multifamily office, that multifamily office is likely to have relationships with attorneys, with CPAs, with other professionals that will ultimately get brought into the mix, where there's maybe some level of either fee sharing or, hey, I bring the CPA in, but they also refer me clients, which generally is still a conflict. So the key is with a multifamily office, are they being transparent? Are they disclosing where they see some of these conflicts? It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. They just need to be transparent and disclose them. So I think that's a really important factor to consider. And I think another one that, especially with the families that we work with, is becoming more and more important is the ability to do multi-generational kind of dynasty planning for the family. With the single family office, again, they work for all generations of the family. And so it's relatively seamless as that transitions from one generation to the next. The family members themselves are often involved in the single family office structure. Or with a multifamily office, that's not usually the case. And oftentimes as wealth transfers from one generation to the next, that next generation taking over will often change advisors to someone they want to work with that's different from who their parents were working with. So the ability to keep that continuity from one generation to the next can be more challenging. Not to say that multifamily offices can't do a good job building those relationships. It's just more likely in a multifamily office for for there to be a change from one generation to the next. So there's, again, some of the other more maybe non-structural areas that we see some differences in.
Yeah, but I mean, they're worth noting. I think I would imagine when most people are looking at single family versus, multifamily, they would look at the structural components, and then once they're in it, they realize, oh man, these other intangible components are equally as important, and I want to make sure they're aligned with us and our goals and so on. Uh, Homer, for our audience out there that has been frequent listeners and viewers of this show, they're probably sitting there thinking, what the heck, guys? You guys have been talking about this idea of a virtual family office for so long. I haven't heard you mention it once today.
Yeah.
So talk to me about how weaved into the concept of a virtual family office, how these structures exist, because this is a third component, a virtual family office, not a single family, not a multifamily. Where does the virtual family office come into play with these two concepts?
Yes, as technology and communication has evolved over the last 5-10 years, it's opened the door for multifamily offices, which really conversion is building towards, to be able to bring more specialized services that aren't as often available within a more traditional multifamily office structure to each individual family. So we can effectively try to build more of a single family office feel around each family from a virtual standpoint by pulling in experts that might be and other professionals that might be working for other multifamily offices or being brought in by multifamily offices. We can still access those resources and wrap them around a family without them having to directly employ the multifamily office itself. So it's the ability to really go out into our industry, into the financial world, and identify the very best professionals for any individual situation. Where with a multifamily office, they're going to use the resources they have in house for the most part. They've in-house attorneys, they've in-house tax specialists, they've in-house wealth management. With a virtual family office, we're not set in stone with one set of professionals. We're going to go out and find the very best for each individual client. So it's kind of in our view, kind of a best of both worlds, because we have access to resources like a multifamily office would have, but again, we can individualize it to each family based on their own needs. So that's the way that we look at how the virtual family office fits into all of this.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks for that overview. I appreciate it. And Homer, obviously, it goes almost without being said, but most of the time when families are looking at these family office models, it's because they have a vast need of goals, issues and objectives they're looking to solve with family wealth. There's a lot of dynamics and variables at play. So obviously every single family has their own unique challenges, their own unique goals. Homer, for anybody out there that's hearing this conversation that, you know, they know that they would need to go in and have a granular conversation with you and your team to try and pinpoint which of these three really family office models we chatted about today would make the most sense for them. What would be the best way somebody could get in touch with your team and just open up a dialogue on that?
Yeah, great question. And before we kind of get into that component of it, one thing I want to add is, one of the biggest benefits of technology and the work we've done over the last number of years working with these families is a lot of the best ideas and strategies that work for, you mentioned $500 million is the kind of the number where a single family office starts to make sense. So a lot of the work that those single family offices have done, doing deep research into the tax code and legal code, they've identified advantages that work for pretty much everybody. If it's in the code, it's available. Now, whether it makes sense financially and bang for your buck wise, you may or may not until you get to those levels, but many of them do apply to families with 10 million, 20 million, 30 million in wealth. And so the ability of a multifamily office or a virtual family office is to be able to bring a lot of those ideas to families that weren't aware they existed. So I think that's a huge advantage, again, of looking at some of these structures. So it's not just reserved for those families worth 500 million or more. So with that, the best way to get in touch with us always is through our website or email. And so we'll make sure those are up on the screen, but just reach out and let us know that you're interested in a second pair of eyes to take a look at your overall situation, identify if there might be some gaps, opportunities, or places to bring in this multifamily office or virtual family office structure to your financial world.
Oh, no, this is great. And thanks for that point of clarification. That's an important one, certainly. But, well, look, Homer, I know you're a busy guy and you got clients to serve and conversations to have. So I'll let you get back to doing that. But I appreciate your time today and see you back here on the next one.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. Good to see you as always.
Of course, always good to hang out with you, Homer. And look, folks, we're going to take a final moment as we typically do and thank you for making us a part of your day. If you enjoyed today's discussion, you learned a thing or two, make sure you subscribe to the show on the platform that you did check us out on today. So that way you don't miss out on future conversations where Homer and I unpack different wealth management concepts, or we welcome on esteemed guests and experts to dive into their unique world and the various information they can bring to that intersection of wealth management and life. But for Homer, I'm Ryan. We're going to go ahead and say so long now, but we appreciate you stopping by and being with us on Advance Your Wealth.